Welcome, guys. We've had the Austrian Grand Prix, and what a race that turned out to be. So close at the end. The top three, less than 2 seconds between them. Nothing to pick. Two different cars. We've got different strategy options. We had the two Ferraris on the front row, and we didn't quite see the pace that we got. We'll go through everything. Let's get to it. Well, guys, that race had absolutely everything. Drama at the start. It was frantic. Cars battling between each and every one of them all the way through the field. It was so close. George Russell got away well. The perfect start for him. Charles Leclerc kept him on in second place. And then we got the battle with the two Ferraris, Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc. Lewis crucially getting past Charles Leclerc early doors. And that was almost a story of Charles' race from there. He was struggling throughout. Kimi Antonelli was fast but rough and ragged. A few mistakes from him cost him positions. We had the McLarens up there in with a fight as well. Oscar Piastri getting ahead of Lando Norris. We got Isaac Hadjar in the mix. Good battling all the way through for the first 5-6 laps. It was absolutely brilliant. Max Verstappen always in the mix. He was keeping everybody honest. He got past Charles Leclerc. He got past Kimi Antonelli. The two cars in sort of one corner while they were both battling with each other. And it's that sort of mistakes, bit of rustiness from Kimi Antonelli, I think, that early doors that probably cost him at least a second place and a chance of victory, because he had the fastest car out of the top three in the end. But Max was absolutely phenomenal in that Red Bull, where we've talked, in qualifying, they weren't quite there. We were looking at third, fourth, possibly best car at times. In the race, they've struggled with tyre deg, not being able to just keep up with the guys ahead. But this race, Max Verstappen and Red Bull were absolutely brilliant. So much to be positive about. The upgrades seem to have worked. They've got on top of their tyre deg issues. They were really, really fast, taking the fight to the Mercedes, and them two passes early doors sort of set the tone for Max Verstappen. We then got a great battle between Max and Lewis Hamilton. Max coming out on top between the pair of them this time around. And then he was just on a hunt to kind of catch up and get past George Russell. It didn't quite happen for him at the end, but he had brilliant pace. He came out after his second stop with a gap of just over 10 seconds to George Russell, and he's finished with just 1.6 behind. The Mercedes is still the car to beat, and Red Bull can take real promise from this, and so can Max Verstappen, because he's just taken a fight to a car that they probably don't have the right to take to yet. Their car is much better. Max Verstappen is absolutely brilliant, and he showed that brilliance again. There was talk early doors in the race, if you watch the watch along, like, can Max do it? And if there's anybody that can do it, it's Max Verstappen. Once he smells blood, once he's in the hunt, he'll take anything and everything. And he was just so close at the end, just nothing in it to get past George Russell. In behind him, he was, kept honest by Kimi Antonelli right up at the end. It looked like we might get a battle between the two of them. It was close, but Kimi Antonelli got 0.3. I think another lap or two, we would have seen more battling with Kimi Antonelli and Max Verstappen. 0.3 behind he finished, so really, really close to Max Verstappen. Kimi Antonelli in the end, he had the scruffy laps, and the scruffy early laps is what really cost him. That battle with Charles Leclerc, which let Max through, cost him. And how unlucky was his 2 virtual safety cars, and twice he pit on the lap of the virtual safety car. I mean, he was exiting the pit as virtual safety car was called on the first time around, and I think that's a really poor call and judgment from the Mercedes team. They've got to take ownership of that one. They'd seen the Williams breakdown on the main straight, and so they could have just carried on one lap. They seen the yellow flags were out, and I'm surprised they didn't wait. Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari, they went in for the pits. Lewis was third place at that stage, and he took advantage of a virtual safety car. They went for a strange strategy call, went for the soft tyres, didn't quite work out for him because it dropped behind Oscar Piastri and a McLaren and his teammate, and then battling and having the pace, that overcut, and the difference wasn't quite there between the tyres that we've seen, especially what we've seen in Barcelona, and so it was harder for Lewis to gain up, and they probably just didn't have quite the pace that they expected. The deg was probably higher in the Ferraris than all the cars around them, and so that call there really cost Lewis, I'd say at least a P4. I think he had the pace to hold on to that position, probably just about, but I think that call was not the right one in hindsight. In the race, it was, I think they were pretty sure at one point that they were going to have to do a 3-stop. They went for the 3-stop. This wasn't the race for the street 3-stop, though. The tire deg wasn't that high. The overcut in the pit stop wasn't that great like we've seen in Barcelona. And so that put Lewis Hamilton out of that sort of podium fight at that stage, and then dropped him down to sort of who finished P5 in the end, and a little bit behind Oscar Piastri. So not the right call, and that strategy call cost him on that one. But Kimi Antonelli, yeah, like I said, he was twice one lap or on the lap of the virtual safety car. The second one, it was a Williams that hit a bollard that ended up in the track. So you can sort of forgive him on that one. You can't really judge these things. If it happens, it happens, and it falls in your favour. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But it's just so annoying that probably for Kimi that had he got one of them at least, I think he would have gone on and won this race. He was the fastest car on the track. He was and had the pace to beat both Max Verstappen and George Russell. But just the work that he had to do by losing the ground early doors, and then also he went longer and just losing time, and then to gain that time back later in the race, just left himself a little bit too much to do. But he was absolutely phenomenal, flying. He was, like I said, clearly the fastest man on track. And like you say, not always the fastest lap or the fastest man wins. And this was one of them races. So Kimi, he'll be kicking himself a little bit. He had a couple of mistakes. It didn't quite happen for him in qualifying. He lifted off. George carried on. These small mistakes, he said it was a mistake. And again, in the race, a few mistakes at the beginning of the race kind of cost him in the end, but he'll be happy with a P3 in some extents, but he should have really have won this race. He had the pace from there. I tell you who was another good surprise here this race weekend was Oscar Piastri, and he deserves mention because we've been talking about him being in the shadows of Lando Norris so far this this season, we've got to say. I can't see a race where I've seen Oscar be beaten by or getting the better of Lando Norris, but this race was absolutely one of them. From the start to the finish, he got ahead of Lando Norris early doors, and then his pace was brilliant. Got ahead of Charles Leclerc, great battle with him, and had the pace to keep ahead of Lewis Hamilton as well with his strange strategy option, and drove a really, really good fast race. Lewis was catching Oscar, but Oscar had enough tyre advantage and enough pace to keep Lewis Hamilton back. And a very good P4, you've got to say. McLaren looked like the fourth best team. The fact that they've beaten both Ferraris and he's beaten a Red Bull, I think that's a very, very good job from Oscar Piastri. Can be happy with the race that he ran. Wasn't in too much drama, just good racing with Charles Leclerc, but he's the man that you want to have good racing with. Charles is a pretty fair, clean driver, and he doesn't give a quarter, but was good racing between the pair of them, and that's what was one thing that was really good about this race weekend. There was overtakes, good, hard, clean racing throughout the whole Grand Prix. Early doors with Lewis and Charles, two teammates, then with Max Verstappen and Antonelli and Charles, then with Max and Lewis, then we've seen Kimi Antonelli fighting through the field, then we've seen Oscar Piastri and Charles Leclerc battling with each other. It was just really, really good to see. driving and the racing in and behind him wasn't too spectacular, but we've got to give a shout out also to one of my other drivers of the day. I think driver of the day personally for me is got to be Max Verstappen. He was phenomenal. Second behind him, Kimi Antonelli. He was absolutely brilliant as well. Just the mistakes early doors cost him. But the other one I've got to say is Liam Lawson. What a drive. Got to say about 10 laps in, I think he said he had a fire in his car. A couple of laps later, he's still got this fire in his car. And to come home and he's beaten his teammate in the end, a brilliant job from him, a fantastic drive, a really well-deserved P9. And his stock has gone up, hasn't it, so far this season? He's got the better of his teammate. He had a brilliant qualifying session, a brilliant drive in the race, and hats off to the guy because he's, that whole turmoil, and then he had to be strong this weekend. He had to start getting the better of his teammate. And early parts of this season, I think Arvid had the better of him, but now that experience and the driving skill of Liam Lawson is showing through, and a quite brilliant drive from him. Isaac Hadjar, a solid P6, nothing spectacular there. Disappointing from the two Cadillacs. They did lap 4 or 5, and it's been an absolutely horrible race weekend from start to finish. It started in free practice. They were breaking down all over the place. It carried on in the race. They did 3 or 4 laps, so an awful lot of work to do for them. The Aston Martins comfortably a mile back. And then from there on, the racing behind wasn't fantastic. The Audis finishing 11 and 12, probably where their pace was. The Alpines will be disappointed. Pierre Gasly, after the high of the podium in Monaco, they're comfortably out of the top 10 at the moment, so work to be done for them. But what a brilliant race. And it's hats off to the way Formula One and the racing's gone. With the upgrades, they're able to follow closely. We're getting no longer the yo-yo overtakes. We're getting proper overtakes, proper racing. And we add to Silverstone next, because what a Grand Prix that will be. Watch out for the driver ratings video coming early next week. We'll have a preview of Silverstone by sort of Wednesday, Thursday at the absolute latest, and join me for the watch-alongs for Saturday and Sunday, and I'll have these reviews popped out for you there as well. But what a race. Really, really good to see the Red Bulls taking the fight to the Mercedes. George Russell just held on. It was so close to the story, because almost again that he was beaten by another great champion when he stuck it on pole. Last weekend it was Lewis Hamilton in Barcelona. This weekend here it could have been close to being Max Verstappen, but he's held on. He's got his victory. And you've got to say, well-deserved, because he managed that race really, really well, did George Russell. Pole position, got the victory in the end. Not the fastest man on track, but the most consistent man on track. And I think that clear air and having that pole position was absolutely crucial for him. And what a lap in qualifying, even to lift off and get the job done and take pole position. When we see a yellow flag on track, it's normally lights off, but we're sort of busy celebrating a Ferrari 1-2 start, and it was George that just pulled off a mega lap to, even with a lift off, to keep pole and take pole position was absolutely phenomenal. And he's got his championship battle right back on track. Now it's absolutely hotting up in the championship race. Kimi Antonelli is coming to the European season in Austria. Not really his fault. He drove a brilliant race, and the DNF, he'd got the better of George Russell that time around. This time around, it's not really gone his way. A brilliant drive, but too many mistakes from his side, and it's mean that it's, George Russell's got the better of him, but better from Kimi Antonelli. It's not the European season, and Kimi Antonelli's falling apart. The 2 races out of 7 where he really struggled last year. This year, fair enough, he's probably been the faster of the 2 Mercedes drivers. One with a DNF and not his fault. He'd lost points. And this weekend, George got the better of him, but it's he was right within touching distance of him, and he wasn't getting cleaned out. But he'll head to Silverstone next, and he'll want to put one over his team at his home Grand Prix. So it should be absolutely brilliant. Who knows what the guys in and behind are doing? Are Red Bull really back? Like we thought Ferrari were after Lewis Hamilton's brilliant victory last time around. It fell apart for Ferrari this weekend. There'll be a lot of head scratching going on in Maranello, as I get the word out there finally. Because, well, for a 2-3, it looked like a 1-2 for pole, and then in the race, it's absolutely fallen apart from them. At no point at any stretch in the race were they quick. They tried the soft tyres, they tried the mediums, and they tried the hards. On all three of them, they just didn't have the pace, which is so interesting because it looked like they were really hard on their deg, something that they mastered and got on top of in Barcelona, but something that they struggled with in Monaco. So is this just sort of track specific? And that's something that they'll need to sort of work out and get on top of, because it's got to be, frankly, a really disappointing for the Ferrari boys. They've gone home, qualified really high hopes coming into the race, and to finish 5th and 8th, Charles Leclerc will be, it's just another disaster race for him as well. He's on the back of 2 really poor races, really good qualifying to get it up in 2nd place, and to be way down in 8th is a huge kick in the teeth for him. But I'm expecting Silverstone to suit them and that car, with the medium high speed corners, the engine upgrades. So don't count them out. Silverstone will be absolutely brilliant. The mid pack behind them have got a lot of work to do to try and make this interesting and tense and try and break into this top 4. But even the racing between them, it's either one's got on top of the other and they're comfortably ahead of the teams behind. And so we're seeing quite a big disparity in performance between them guys further back. Unlike what we see between the top 4, there's at times nothing to pick between them. So we'll see what happens with that one next time around. But what a great race. Austria, you have delivered. I hope you enjoyed the race. If you enjoy the video, give it a like and a thumbs up. If you're new and enjoy the content, give me a subscribe. Massively appreciated. But there we have it. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.